Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. Notice is hereby given of a workshop with the Board of Directors of the district to be held at 105 Port Road, Port Isabel, Texas on March 3rd, 2021 at the hour of 5:30 p.m. for consideration of the business of the agenda below. This notice is posted at the office of the district on February 26th, 2021 at 11 a.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-041-551-050. We do have the presence of a quorum. Present, we have myself, Mr. Friedman, Mr. Starkey, and Mr. Donahue, and I believe joining us by Zoom, we have Dr. Lalonde. Absent.
That's correct.
Water as of now. He probably will join later throughout the meeting. May I please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carlos, the invocation.
Yes. Thank you, Father, again, we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. We just ask you to give us wisdom and knowledge to understand all that we're about to discuss tonight, and that we can do the best we can, Lord, to move forward and work together for the projects that are coming up and everything that's ahead of us, Lord, that you direct us in the right path. We just thank you again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. We'll begin the workshop. Item 3, discuss the tax bonds.
Okay. I'm going to start it up with there's a lot of information that's coming up on a lot of the needs of the district. And what I wanted to mention is it's hard to absorb everything, but we're going to be open, on one-on-one with the board. So that if you have still questions that come up, you can come in and visit us, and we'll explain to do everything that you need to know. And we're going to be doing that because there's so much information that's in there. We try to cut it down as much as we could, but that's the way to work out. So we'll just go through it as quickly as we can, and as applicable as we can.
Oh, Charles.
All right, good evening. So we've got a ton of projects on our list. We've asked for, I don't know if it's a 3-year plan or a 30-year plan, but pretty much all the projects on the table are being presented today. And Finance has a report that combines both the tax and revenue. So we're thinking of, debating on whether we're going to go through that full presentation after going through a full set of projects, or if after we just start with the projects on the tax bond side, we can dive into the financial advisor's presentation. So that's what we can debate here. Let's see. All right, so I mean, I guess for the tax bond, as far as the first item, the state fiscal year 2022 drinking water state revolving fund, it's kind of familiar stuff. We've been talking about how the 24 million cap is in place. So we've already submitted the project information form. It's pretty much the portion of work listed on the whiteboard here: water plant 1 for the microfiltration facility, the ground storage tank, and the transfer pump station from pumping the raw water from Reservoir 3 to Reservoir 1. So that's and the 600,000 gallon elevated storage tank that would decommission both the existing Port Isabel tanks and Laguna Vista tanks. So that's really in our typical drinking water SRF loan. We're shooting at trying to get on the intended use plan and get that invitation to apply here in September, and have that loan in the fiscal year 22 cycle with a fully subsidized rate with the current program with Water Development Board. And then the other part of the job is open market with our tax commitment, the remaining portion that got approved in the November election, and that's to cover the South Padre Island, the Laguna Boulevard water line upgrades and the causeway, and also to reimburse our clarifier that we've already have under contract at Water Plant 1. And so that's really the main part for the 2021 election. I mean, well, I guess that covered 3A and 3B. I don't know if you want to have any more discussion on those projects or we're kind of already past that point, being familiar with it.
Can I just mention? So
Sure.
I just want to mention on that, what the voters approved was 27.6 million. Now, the best financing that we can get is through the Texas Water Development Board with an SRF financing. There's a cap of 24 million on that. So that's why our plan is to break up and apply for the 24 million with the Texas Water Development Board, and the rest of it would go out through an open market financing. By going out for that open market financing, it also gives us the option of getting ahead because the Texas Water Development Board financing has a lot of processes that we have to go through in order to secure that financing. Through the open market, there's less strings attached. So we're able to work ahead, and that's what we're planning to use to finance our Laguna Boulevard project, as well as the clarifier rehabilitation. Just wanted to mention that.
All right. So continuing on the tax bond side, I guess the next part of the discussion here is the Seawater Desalination Treatment Facility. We do have that Proposition 2, 15.6 million that we haven't issued, and that current estimate, I went ahead and the Black and Beach finalized the regional water plan for 2021. It was finalized in November 5th, 2020. And so that's really the reference we're using for the current cost estimate on the Seawater desal plant. And, our authorization in 2011 was for 15.5 million, and their estimated cost is 40,290,000. So it's, we're talking quite a bit difference in the latest estimate done through the state water planning effort versus what our authorization was in the 2011 election. So that there's, it's going to be another election, and we got to figure out how we're going to close that gap with the project. And really, the main point of bringing this up for discussion is the Corps of Engineers. They kind of have a planning assistance grant up on the table to proceed with the master plan over the next year. And really, the main point of that is to amend that seawater plant to get it relocated off of the island and over here to Port Isabel. And so there's kind of, the main parts are within a month, we need to get them a letter of intent if we're interested in them drafting up a scope for us. Basically, what we have to do within the next board meeting or so is prepare a letter of intent, send it to the Corps of Engineers, and then they will start drafting up a scope of work. We're looking at inlet location somewhere here between the harbor and the ship channel, and then just kind of the alternatives involved with looking at how efficient we can get a seawater plant using the infrastructure that we have here in place. And so that would be, at this stage, we're looking at a $300,000 master plan. That's a 50% local, 50% funded by the board. And so that's really the only action item within the 3-year plan. So and then the other part would be future as far as when we actually go to construction. And I would expect that plan would revise the cost estimate from the 40 million that's in the regional plan today. That's kind of where we're sitting with Seawater.
So I'll go as fast as you talk. The desal bond passed when?
Maybe 2011?
2011,
For how much?
15 million.
Which we can't touch for anything other than desal projects,
Seawater. That's the key word.
seawater projects. And the projected cost of actually doing something like that was 40 what?
40,290,000.
Practically giving it away.
I'm sorry, you're repeating.
Practically giving it away. 40,200,000 and what?
90.
And so 300,000 master plan costs something we may need to decide on by the next board meeting, half of which would be billable to us, the other half the Corps of Engineers is going to eat, and that would allow us to what?
To draft a scope, we determine the cost for building an intake on the ship channel, or there'll be an alternate site selection and part of that analysis.
Which could reduce that $40 million cost? Is that what you're shooting at here?
Yeah, because we're looking at blending it with a raw river water prior to treatment. Possibly when the membrane facility gets built, our conventional filters might be a possible.
Excuse me. For the record, we have Mr. Dave Potter joining the workshop.
Thank you. Sorry, I've been late.
Seawater, yeah, I mean, we kind of have an estimate for 2 MGD RO at water plant one of about 4 million. We don't have any pricing on the intake portion of the board.
Wait a second, sorry.
Yeah.
2 MGD for 4 million?
Well, yeah, but it's too, we don't have any intake pricing, so the whole intake structure would have to be added to that number, which is unknown. So that's kind of, I think that, because the letter of intent doesn't commit us to anything, it's just basically giving the Corps an ability to draft up a scope of work. And they would have a project bigger than just us as an individual entity. It's going to have to be something to meet their requirements on a federal level involving improvements at the irrigation district. And we'd be able to take the data, to apply it to our portion of it. So we have to.
But that would still be a $150,000 investment on our side, just to see how much more we need to spend on that bond. Does that bond expire at any time, or when's it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if Bond Council wants to chime in on the Seawater conditions. Yeah, we can let them get the legal.
Sorry, I know this was not even why we're here, but I just wanted to bring proper speed real quick.
Let me introduce Noel Valdez, he's a bond counsel. He's been with the district for more than 15 years.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
also with the law firm, we'll call Parker Stewart.
Great.
Yes, the 2011 Proposition 2 for the Seawater Desalination Plant, the authority does not expire. So the authority stays with the water district. There's no expiration date. The question will be when and if a new desal plant is decided to move forward, if the Attorney General will let us use that power on the station, or whether the Attorney General is going to want us to put on the proposition, which we'll know. Given that perhaps they're going to see it as a different project, but that has not yet been released with the Attorney General.
Okay.
But it does not expire.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm done. Thanks.
All right, so that's really what's on the table for discussion from the tax fund side. I mean, then the next part of the item 3D would be the presentation by our financial advisor. And
All that's still in budget though, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the revenue, I don't know, do you want to get into revenue projects first?
Not really. I mean, I'm just wondering, but everything on the bond is under the 27.6 threshold. And it sounds like 3.6 of that will be available a little quicker than maybe the 24 million would. You did a great job of bringing that so we can kind of get rolling. Great. That's all I cared about, that we're in budget.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess I'll hand it over to the finance.
And then we have our financial advisor, who's been with the district over 15 years also. No way.
Got all the old people here today. All right.
Yeah. No way, what's up? Come on.
Good afternoon, I hear in the back of his smile, saying that. No, I know, Jose, good afternoon, sir.
Good
Welcome
afternoon.
to the board, look forward to working with you. Basically, coming here at the direction of staff. Pretty comprehensive, I think, plans that you have in mind for the next 5 years. Anytime that, as you well know, anytime that we're going out to the markets on your behalf, whether it's the markets or board on board, you have somebody out there looking at it itself, on how you run it, how you run the system, how much debt you have outstanding, and so on and so forth. So we go to Moody's, one of the rating agencies out there, and they give you a grade based on how much you have in their exposure, how much you have in tax values. In fact, this global subdivision, a little bit of my water district, is probably considered one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest water district in the valley. So financially, you're perceived as someone who is very strong, able to support a lot of debt. But this board has historically been very conservative in how we go about our projects and so on and so forth. I think it's important for you to understand that anytime we borrow projects for water, the board has historically taken those needs to the voters. If it's a sewer improvement, that goes more into the rate structure. And the difference is pretty simple, that if you do not do a sewer improvement, you end up violating EPA rules, or maybe even PCQ can handle it, and they'll force you to shut down if you don't do that. So if you have a bond referendum to do sewer improvements, and for whatever reason the public says no, then what do you do? Today now, if you take something to voters, correct me if I'm wrong, and it fails, you have to wait 3 years to borrow for what you initially thought you could have. fails, you have to wait 3 years. We can't wait 3 years to shut this place down. So people ask me, why is it that we do sewer on a revenue basis? That's the reason why. You don't have to change. You have to know that is required. So we put together this little packet. And this little packet is basically a summarized list because we deal with a lot of money. I don't speak as fast as Charles does.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that you understand everything. And you'd be amazed how Charles and I a lot of times are not on the same side. So I enjoy coming down here and learning about what they do here. And I think you have pretty good people here. But having said all that, what's presented to us is a total of about $119 million over the next 5 years. A big chunk of that money is the $40 million desal. So you take that out, and you're at 69 million. Out of that 69 million, about 16 and change is the Long Island Village project. So you like at 53 million of CIP just by taking those two items out. You got equipment, which historically we've always done here with cash. We pay as you go. You don't borrow money for equipment for the most part. So here on the left side, you have a list of categories: water system, wastewater system, the Long Island Village project, the Seawater desal plant, facilities, we don't have a price for that, equipment, about $2 million too. So the total is about 119, 160. Some of that has already been funded. We did a 2019 financing with the Texas Water Development Board. And you probably say, who is the Water Development Board? In case you don't know, that's kind of like a state bank. It is there created only for the benefit of making loans to water districts or cities that run utilities. And the Water Development Board, sometimes they borrow money on behalf or with the state of Texas credit, which is AAA credit, the highest credit you could get. And try to match some of those monies, those loans, with federal grants or federal appropriations they get from DC. They blend them, they create a pool, and use that pool to lend to people like you, all the subdivisions like yours. And a lot of times those rates are subsidized when compared to what you would do if you were outright go out to the market and say, I want to borrow $10 million. So we go to the Water Development Board because of that reason the money is cheap. We went to the market back in 19. Actually, we borrowed from them in 19. I think the rate we got something like 0% and change over 25, 30 years. So you can't say no to that kind of money. You probably, some of you are in the business of investments, whether it's equities or fixed income. Fixed income has enjoyed here most recently probably the lowest interest rates in the last 50 years for that matter. It's been good for the stock market. But now there's a fear that inflation is around us, money's getting tight, but then DC is about to approve a 1.9 trillion stimulus money in. And who knows what that's going to do. That's what's creating a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. It's causing interest rates to rise. I was telling the guys back in October, if I have to rush the chairman,
No, I'm sorry. Messages.
Last October, the 10-year treasury, and that's sort of like the interest rate benchmark that we look at. The 10-year treasury traded at 0.56, 0.58. Today it's at 148. So if you borrow money out 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, the sweet spot on that loan is about 12 years. So the 10-year treasury is what I look at more closely because that's about the average benchmark to look at when you borrow 20 years out. And that went up, like I just said a minute ago, it's gone up maybe 100 basis points. That's in 4 months. Today we priced, we're financial advisors. We're a broker dealer. I happen to be the owner of the firm. Been in the business 34 years. I'm 29, and we're regulated by the SEC. So everything I tell you, I'm licensed for to do. I cannot promise you about future rates or whatever. You know that's still on that. But we happen to represent State of Texas today on a $375 million loan that we did statewide. Barclays was the underwriter, and our desk was telling us that just between yesterday and today, we had a shift in interest rates upward by 7 basis points. So when you borrow 375, 2 7 expired, that's an issue or two in interest cost. So whatever I'm about to go through here with you, keep in mind that interest rates, we can only go by assumptions, and we like to make mistakes on those assumptions, but for the good side. So I'm showing you the worst off numbers. In fact, when you passed one referendum last fall, it was for 27 million and change. We told the taxpayer that expect taxes to go up to 8.5 cents on for $100 of sales value. Right now, based on what we know, what has been offered to us in terms of its rate, and as Eddie mentioned to you earlier, if we take out $3 million in the open markets, that tax rate is going to be probably 1 cent below what we went out to total orders. So what we want to do is make sure we look good for you, but you are our bosses. So you need to look better for the taxpayer. So that's in essence what we're trying to do here by showing the CIP. So the CIP is 119.
Howdy, everybody.
We haven't missed much. I'm just kidding.
I've been listening. Interest rates going up
A little bit.
slightly.
Maybe not as much as we think. But having said all that.
Excuse me, no, for the record, we have Dr. Lalonde joining the meeting.
For the record, it's already too cold.
Yeah.
If I'm cold, so are you.
We'll warm me up with this number though. So basically, out of the 119, how will you fund the 119? Then I put you to the right side of that page one. These sources. You have your obligation debt for water. You got new revenue debt, which will be issued in 2021, 2023, 25. These are just numbers that we try to model for you based on what we know they're going to be. Some of these projects you don't need funding right now. They need funding down the road. There's a revenue bond that we already funded at 19 for about 4.9 million. And then contract revenue debt. This is the one that is funded. And I don't know to what extent we'll be getting into details of what we know today with that project.
I'm interested. Talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, and we'll get there. Probably the last part of it. Thinking that taxes is more important than user base. So having said all that, the rest of it or some of it, about $8.5 million stay with cash. If you go to page 4 or page 3, I'm sorry, that is literally the mortgages that you have outstanding paid by property taxes. You got 2 loans on the upper left hand side. One is for $1,795,000 that is currently outstanding, and one that was issued in 2012 for about $10.8 million. So you got about $4.6 million outstanding, and it's being paid from 21 to 2032. So if you decide to do nothing, then you pay this debt off in 12 years. Very unusual. We got clients again all over the place, and when you deal with a utility system, people are in debt for 20, 25 years. You're in a great position as far as borrowing capacity. What's more important too is that you have the voters who are giving you their support to go and borrow 27 million and change. When you look at the right side, Moody's made sure to double include credit. There's 2 differences between the revenue bonds and general obligation debt. The geo debt is rated better than the revenue debt. Why? Because the geo debt includes the moral support of the voter. That's huge in this credit markets. One thing is me trusting you, lending me money on the way you run your business. Another one is to say the owner is putting his money where his mouth is. And by them voting the way they did, you're the double A credit, and S&P push it to A+. The tax rate there, from left to right, in 18 you were at a 4.4 pennies. Today you're almost 4 pennies. It's going down more due to the function of the property values. As property values rise, the less tax rate required. Right? So when you turn the page, and please interrupt me if you have any questions. On page 4, I tell our panelists to show you property values at, right now in 2021, 2021 is $3.5 billion property values. That increased 1.7% over the previous year. From here on, I have growth at 0%. So whatever we bought, with property values higher than 1.7%, your levy or your taxes are dropping by 1.7%. So you care about property tax collections, you care about property values, and you care about interest rates to know how certain you are about your tax rate going forward. So the tax rate today, went slightly up by about 1/10 of a penny, from 3.882 to 3.992, and basically it was probably a function of property values not going up as we had projected in the past, and then we thought that it could be up by 3.5%, we went to 1.7. So I said, well, knowing the nature of this board, let's change that to 0%. If we use a higher number in terms of property value growth, the levy or the tax rate increase would be, or, basically be a lot less. When you turn to the next page, we have two big columns in blue. One loan at the top is about $3,235,000. As Teddy mentioned earlier, the state of Texas, as the Texas Water Development Board, as Water Development Board goes about lending you money, wherever they're taking the money from, whatever pools they're taking the money from, they end up learning their lessons too. When they lend you money at 0%, they're going, well, heck, if rates are going to be this low, we're not going to be able to leverage the money that was given to us by the legislature years ago if we keep giving this loan to 0%. We got to charge something. So they pretty much have told us that if your rating is a AA2 and the index for AA2 credit is 2%, they're only going to subsidize you for 40%. So instead of paying 0%, you're going to have to pay 1.2% if the going rate is 2% on an index basis. So right now, in this particular case, when you look at the third row from the top on the 22 loan, that's when the Water Development will close to the loan for $24 million. We're looking at a rate of 207. That has about a 50 or in this case, it's got about a 75 basis point cushion. If you were to borrow the money today from the Water Development Board, you'll get a 120, 130 thereabouts. But because we don't know what's going to be next June, we put 75 basis points as a cushion. As we make presentations to you in days to come, giving updates, we'll know more about the rates as we modify those rates. But having said all that, if you were to borrow, if you give us authority, there's a process to borrow money. On the GEO side, I guess now that the voters have approved it, we can probably come to the market in 30 days or 45 days after you say, okay, let's go borrow the $3 million in case of the market financing. And then we'll come back and give you a rate that is negotiated with an underwriter, with a lender, and then 30 days later, you take that money. So that money, that's the one on the left blue. If you go out 20 years with that loan and not 30, going 30 on a $3 million loan is very excruciating for a lender. Normally don't go that far out. I mean, they may go 25, but you pay through the nose and interest rate. So 20 years is pretty easy to manage because we're not violating what you promised the voters and that you would never get into that 8.7. I mean, that you're not going to pass over 8.7. And as it is right now, if you look at in 2030, you'll be required to levy by 7.895. That's your property tax you make the same. So we're very confident that no matter what you do, you're never going to get that 8.7 in terms of a tax rate. So that's like the only good thing about this presentation is that what we said, we've achieved. The thing is, you've got more needs coming behind it. And the greater needs in this particular second class of needs, the water side, is a desal project. So when you turn the page on the desal.
Have you ever seen property tax? Have you ever seen the net taxable value decrease?
No.
No?
Not in my 30 4 years. I think wherever I've seen it, it's been in counties where we have a lot of mineral values. So we were, one of our clients is Hidalgo County, Star County up, Webb County, and LaSalle in the middle of Eagle Ford. They were having issues with the roads, getting so dilapidated with all the big trucks going into the gas wells and stuff. So I got a call from the judge and he said, no, I need about $100 million for road improvements. Well, there's always a good engineer behind it. And I go, let me go see this thing. So I go out there, and I'm not a very tall fellow, as you guys know, but I got up there, and I think the road levee was over my head.
Hill country.
Yeah, and they don't stop, those trucks just go in there, haul gas, and go back and forth. So I said, look, let's do 30 or 45 million first, see how it works, and then we borrow in tranches, kind of like you. If you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it in tranches. So we went and borrowed, I think, 30 million or 35 million. And I said, instead of borrowing out 25 years or 20 years, let's go short. Let's go 10 years. So this thing falls off the ground. At that time, I know about I think the well's going to be, the first property value dropping. And maybe I can restructure, refinance it, taking out longer. He dropped about 4 or 5 years later when you go for the gas prices went down. And we had to raise taxes or restructure. So we restructured, we went out. And that's about the only time I've seen prices drop. So yeah, I've seen that. But you, in this case, what will cost it? We represent Mesa County and City of Corpus Christi up the golf course. I think one of the, I can't remember the name of the town, but you know the one. You live up there. They just got taken out by the hurricane a couple years ago. $1.1 billion, $1.2 billion was lost to the property values in Mesa County. So a lot of things that I see along the Gulf, and that's why a lot of times you're required to have fund balances to be strong, savings accounts to be strong, is because you know, come September, October, you can get wiped out. And the problem that we have had here when we had, I think it was Dolly, you run a system. One of the things that concerns me about you guys is the amount of CIP that you're about to undertake if you were to undertake it. You know, 103 million is a lot of money for anybody. And when you take on a project of that size, you worry about two things. You worry about, well, maybe three things. One is when you go to the project, are you going to be able to budget? I already heard that you're $2 million short for something we were doing just a year ago regarding lift stations. What was it, Charles?
Yeah, the Series 19 revenue, that $5.4 million loan to proceed with construction, we need to find another $2 million from the latest estimate.
So that, to me, you guys, I mean, we're all in it together. Once we commit, we better be aware that can bite us in the butt. We just can't afford to take those shots. So the more you prolong a project, the more expensive it's going to get. I mean, the inflation construction cost is actually higher than the exposure on interest rate risk historically. But whenever you decide to do something, you better make sure you need it. Something about wanting is one thing, needing is another thing. So when you take on a project of this magnitude, I worry about cost overruns. I worry about the cost of the project once put in place on your operating budget. I think today your budget, let me switch for a number, is about $11 million to run the system. You know, you've got assets, the plants, the pipe, every single thing out there. The balance sheet is what, Eddie, about 22? Or is it?
Yes, that's right.
About $22 million. So think about borrowing money, let's say $100 million. So that's a liability you've incurred, and you're gonna have $100 million in assets. Well, you and I have homes, properties and stuff. Some of it's leveraged, some of it's not paid for. At the end of the day, you've got to be aware about the rainy day. Well, here, unfortunately, it may not rain that often, but when it rains, it really pours. And the question of when Dahlia occurred is that our operating budget grew because plants were shutting. You had all kinds of emergencies. They said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll go to FEMA. I don't have to tell you the story of FEMA. I think you know better that story than I do. So you have a loss by spending money to fix everything that got destroyed. And then you're losing because people who normally use your water are across the pond here. And if they don't come because they got their own issues at home, then you're losing revenue. So it's a balancing act. And I wish I could tell you, don't worry about it, let's go this way, we're gonna be fine. There's a lot of uncertainty. And thus, when you do something of this magnitude, I worry about cost overruns, I worry about the uncertainty of going forward and how you deal with acts of God. And then three is the will of the people. Will they pay tax rates? Will they pay water and sewer rates? And that's why you have the studies and you call the professionals to help you out. At the end of the day, we can help you tell you all you want to hear, but you're the one that's out there, whether it's getting elected or, talking with Rotary or whatever, you're on the front line. Our job is to make sure that you understand what you're about to get into. So sorry for the long answer.
No, that's a good one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think here, if you were to do any money stuff, we're also looking at, okay, can we save some money on the existing loans? There's one little loan we have for about $9 million. It's carrying interest rates of about 4.5%, 4.75%. We can save you that. And there's a little column on page 5 or page 6 that talks about, we can go to page 6. There's a fifth column from right to left. And it's got a little scribber, a little column that shows you in parentheses, savings, $40,000 for a year for the next 10 years or that. And that's basically by shifting rates from maybe 4.5% to 2.25%. That's all it is. When you go to page 7, you'll see the desal project. The desal project, if you do $40 million, it's about $2.25 million annual payment. So basically, when you get that $2.25 million payment, then your tax rate, you're about 14 cents, 14.5. You asked me, well, how does that tax rate compare to other subdivisions out there? I think we represent Seawater, but I'm not a banker on that. We represent Municipal ISD, I'm not a banker on that. But you are by far, I'm sure, the lowest tax rate. The point is not to be competing with those guys because you're only using your tax rate literally to pay GO debt. So if you have a fiduciary, maybe not you, but I do, to tell the voter, hey, here's what we're going to borrow the money for, and here's what's going to take. So I'd rather be low, or I'd rather be higher representing to the voters and come low when it comes to reality. That way we'll win. In fact, the problem is that if your cost overruns go higher, then you're going to have to sell revenue bonds if you can use GO bonds. That is GO side. So then we go to the sewer side. And the sewer side, you got on page 9, you got 4 little loans outstanding. There's really nothing there to refinance it. Here, the revenue side is a little different ballgame. Here you don't have property values as for that. On the GO side, you have property values attached. Here you have the business enterprise, what the water district generates in terms of profit. We all have businesses. It's about making a profit. You can pay your mortgages, pay your rent or whatever. In this case, you have 4 loans, about $50 million of debt outstanding. And you're producing, quote unquote, profits. If you look at the right side, there's a little quadrant. It's got FYE 2018, 19, 20. Those are audited numbers. We base all this up on your audits. There's a little row that says available or avail for debt service, DS. That's kind of like your profit. That's the money you have available to pay your debt. So your debt payments in 2018 were $932,000. In 2020, they're about $1,367,000. The next row after that is it says corp coverage. The 295 times coverage, that was $3 that you were getting profit, let's say, running out for your mortgage payment. So the higher the coverage, the better. We represent PUB. I was just at PUB. They've got issues with the electric rates, the gas, and all that stuff. But the coverages, I would say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were probably at about 2.25. They're about 185, 195. That's a big system compared to yours. You're a smaller system. You were expected to be somewhere between 185 and 2.5. Well, you're pushing down. You have a trend now from a 295 to 229. You said, why is that? Only two things going on there. One, you generate less net revenues, less profit, or you're increasing debt. Well, the last thing you want to do when you're growing, when you're bringing in improvements to your system, is have coverages dropping. Because as you add debt to address your concerns, your annual payment is going to be higher, and therefore your coverage is going to drop. And very likely that will have a direct impact on your rating, which will then give you a direct impact on your borrowing costs. The good thing is that some of this money that we're going to borrow is going to be borrowed from the water development project. And regardless of what people may say, the water development rate is cheaper. In fact, I think that the programs that they have for SRF, Eddie, remind me, have they been affected in terms of interest rates? Or are they still at a 0%?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the recent.
So that fluctuates, but we'll keep you abreast of that and as we go along. But for all practical purposes, I wanted you to know what that 229 meant. The red line, I just make assumptions that the red line is your steady income. Think of you living in fixed income, retirement check, and that money is always going to be made. You at 9 now, that if you get hit by a hurricane, that line is going to drop. You have more expenses, less revenues. And that's why fund balance, and I've been an advocate before you guys about considering having always a strong fund balance. If today, I think I've been told you have $10 million in savings in fund balance, and you have a $22 million balance sheet, assets, and you come in, a dolly hits you, that was category 2, I think. So let's say we get something like what came to Corpus Christi a couple of years back. If you get hit and your assets get hit by $10 million, you're going to come off with $10 million right away. And yes, likely you're going to get reimbursed because there'll be a disaster area or whatever. But in the meantime, you have to fix your assets. And then you hope and pray that people come back to the island and start getting to the swing of things. So as you go about bringing in this asset value from 22 million to 50 million or 65 million, then what? So if you have an act of God happening, you gotta have proper insurance. You hope and pray FEMA can pay you back immediately. And that's probably the fourth concern. As you're building all this stuff, something is hitting you. Something hits us.
Don't we get our money from the taxpayers? Like, let's say something terrible happens. Can we not go to the taxpayers and say, hey, if you want water, you're going to have to give us some money,
Water,
right?
but sewer is a different one.
So we can't assess or get money from taxpayers for the sewer in the same way.
You can. I think the question becomes, what are property values going to be?
True. I guess the only reason I'm asking is, if we have the money in our accounts, we basically taxed people and said, we're going to keep your money in case something bad happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to just hold on to that. And there's good reasons, because then we get better interest rates and we're better prepared. And if something does happen, we can go do it. The flip side is we're taking money out of the people's accounts to put in ours. And I feel a pretty good responsibility to keep as much money in the people's accounts as possible, especially if something bad happens. I can go to them and say, hey, we let you keep your money as much as we could, and now we really need it, so give it. Now, that's what you're here to tell me, like, hey, well, this is the amount that should be in your account, and leave the rest in theirs. That's my interest.
We're advisors.
Yeah.
I'm not here to tell you specifically what your policy. You're the one out there, get elected, re-elected, serving people's will. Historically, I've been in the city for a while. yes, you can go to the taxpayer. By the time you get to the taxpayer, you're gonna be fast enough. You think FEMA's slow. The taxpayer's gonna be probably slow. The last thing
6
you
months
wanna
out, minimum of 6 months out.
Yeah, the last thing you wanna be is asking for money when everybody's hurting.
Yeah.
The time was real
I mean,
need.
and it's up to you. I mean, you probably have had different experiences than others. All I can tell you is that I think when everybody's running for the fences, hey, let me take care of myself. I'll worry about you later. In the
So-
meantime,
So how's our money look, like with 10 million in the bank? You think we're good, or you
well,
think?
I think you're exceptionally well.
Okay.
100% of literally in savings of your operation. But you need to be mindful that if you go about getting to bigger things, we need to be making sure that, hey, we can't touch the money. In fact, we may need to grow it.
Don't let it drop, just that little bit of increase every year that we've been
If you
seeing.
can.
But in an
And you
emergency
can-
situation, we basically got a year's worth of emergency fund.
Yeah.
We can operate without a dime collected for a year.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Monster Meadows.
15 months, a little longer.
And that's what I think. We're in a great position right now. My fear again is taking all of this and then you set this precedent, well, let's just send some money out or back, whatever.
I love that we led with you.
Huh?
I love that we led tonight with you. So as we start asking for money, we're like, well, Mr. Hinojosa said, we need to be careful.
Hey, that's
Well, you know, I tell that to my wife and my wife doesn't listen well. We married 34 years, you gotta give.
No, but I understand, I appreciate your expertise and experience in the field, but I'm with Dr. Lalonde, like, if a roughly 15-month emergency fund is what I'll call it, that's substantially enough, in my opinion. We don't need to add to that, in my opinion, like, so as we look at all these asks and needs versus wants.
What you have to think of your operating costs will dwindle considerably if you have
Yeah,
a
Emergency
devastation or
situation.
emergency situation.
I mean, everything.
Yeah, I don't
is-
know, but that's what'll happen, your operating costs.
operating costs are, but then you'd have to probably fix capital, there'd be capital
Correct.
issues.
Yeah, and
Emergency capital.
I don't want to, I mean, as a board, we don't want to live in fear either. So we don't want to have that attitude of just hoarding and keeping, like Dr. Lalonde was saying, we want to be able to let the taxpayers be accountable for their own money. So,
If we have $0 in revenue for a year and we burn through all our money, we're gonna have a lot bigger concern than the pipes, I
Yeah.
promise you.
Yeah.
If we collect no money, it means, I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
tidal wave came and destroyed the whole island.
Apocalyptic
Like,
experience, yeah.
So in my mind, we got more than 15 months, but that's not to say, I hear everything you're saying, we should keep it strong. And, in the last 2.5 years, whenever you presented, I always appreciate that.
Andrew.
That's your message, and that, we're doing a good job of that, and we
I
should
think
keep
you
it
are.
up.
I mean,
Yeah.
You asked me, do you think you need more? I think you're exceptionally well, and you're fine.
And I know we talked a lot about desal, but I'm really not in a place where I'm interested in any of that. The Long Island Village would be something I'd like to be educated on. But
Yeah, and I'll walk you through that. in a minute.
Okay.
And so basically on the sewer side, there's, if you go to page, let's get a little bit more.
yeah, let's flip some pages here.
If you go over to page 13, there, we're looking at all 21, 23, and 25. That's a total of about $21 million on the revenue side. And you see this color column at the far right in yellow, and then there's some blocks in red. The blocks in red means that you have busted through the 1.25 times coverage required with the lender. Years ago, when we started borrowing on a revenue bond basis, we committed to 1.5 times coverage to maintain rates at 1.25 times, I believe. We can confirm that one later, but. Yeah, yeah. So if it's 1.25, that means you gotta generate profits to cover that debt 1.25. If you don't, you gotta raise rates, or don't borrow the money. In fact, you can't borrow the money unless you prove to the investor that you have covered it when the previous year's net profit. So you don't get there until you do the third loan in 25. But if you do that in 23, if you do the second one in 23, I would expect you to have a rate study by that time. So the rate study consultant will work with our analysts to ensure that the CIP hasn't changed a lot, and if it has, how much it has changed, what interest rates are doing, so we can run those models, and then the rate consultant will come to you, okay, you're gonna have to raise rates to retail customers so much, to wholesale customers so much, and so on and so forth. And that I expect that you will have to do something about it by late 22, fourth quarter 22, in hiring this consultant and have some rate increases or adjustments half of the second quarter of 23. Because if you borrow money in 25, I need to show audited numbers in 24. So those are the kind of things, that's why it's important to have a CIP to bring this stuff way in advance and not at the last minute. So then I didn't include a page here. This is talking about Long Island Village, but
Before we get there,
Yes.
just adequately understanding
Yeah.
what you just presented. The total debt service, the sum of that at the bottom of that column, just before the yellow column, is 60,
712, yeah.
that's million, correct?
Yes.
So,
That includes 19 million. That's principal and interest.
Okay.
So if I'm you, when you go home, you look at the first page, and you look at, here are the users.
right here, yeah. And so when I add all those up, less
But you
Long
add those
Island
up.
Village and less desalination, I come to a 62,307,000.
No, this is only one credit. Think of the right arm being the geo credit,
Okay,
left arm being the water and
Okay.
wastewater.
thank you. All right.
And when you add the second column, or the third column, when you do the share,
Yes, sir.
of each that page 13, it says project fund.
Yes.
2 million plus 10,650 plus 9,215. The sum of those three should be the wastewater debt, revenue debt that is on the same page. And then the desal is on the geo side. And you add those columns to the project fund, that should add up to the geo debt. Right? That's your
Understood.
principal. So in other words, here's all your principal that you want to borrow, project fund, and then the interest cost is separate from the bottom of the principal.
Okay.
You need to keep in mind that that 60,712 includes all those columns before it, which includes about $19 million of the current debt that you are obligated to pay for, but for different loans. And then you got principal and interest for each of the successive loans issued in 21, in 23, and in 25.
In the revenue side, do you take in the growth factor as far as?
The growth, well, what we take it into account on the revenue side is basically the number of connections.
But I mean, is it, do you put in these years of growth and do you put a percentage or are you just going off
I just go on your business.
what we have now
I go on your business of how much are you in revenues to rate fees
at the present?
at the present and expenses. So when you go and say, no, I want to borrow 20 million bucks, I gotta look at your audit for the previous year and make sure that the net revenues of the previous year support your debt 1.25 times. The new debt and the old debt. So I have to combine. And you, in order to keep that rating that you have in the A category, you literally have to be at 165, 185. And you're at 2.25 now, but you used to be almost at 3. So what I was trying to tell you, hey, it's coming down this way. You have to level that up. And that's the concern that I have there. But we'll address that as it comes.
But this is also another time where we have increased rates significantly for the last 3 years. So we're spending too much money.
That I don't know. I didn't get into those details for this presentation, but I can tell you the next presentation. I think when you look at page 9,
There's only 2 ways to make that coverage rate ratio.
cutting or increasing.
Yeah.
So go over to page 9. On the third row, on the right side, you got revenues. So revenues went up from 9,585,000 to 11,200,000. So that's an increase of about 1,600,000, 1,700,000. Your expenses went up 1,200,000, 1,300,000. So did you increase the rates so that you can spend or so you can do capital projects in leverage? A lot of times, if you have plants that are old or need repairs, I mean, you're going to have emergency repairs or require more Clorox or whatever you do to clarify it. A lot of that postponing improvements can come at a cost too. So you have to think into the M&O side when you say, are we spending more money? Probably so, you are spending money, obviously, in what, though? That I don't know. I don't know if it's.
We've made a lot of it.
It's up to this,
We've made a lot of capital improvements.
Oh, we sure have, yeah.
A lot of equipment.
And I can tell you that we raised rates in the fall of 18. That was the first year of our 5-year rate plan. And the 5-year rate plan was initiated to pay future debt service payments for capital projects like the lift station project. which we closed in.
And one of the things that was considered at that time, the police board, they were into liabilities on the retirement. Do you recall that? That they were.
Unfunded liabilities.
pension fund.
On the pension
Unfunded
fund,
liabilities.
pension fund, and they were concerned about it too. That's one of the reasons that they increased.
But we could give you an assessment of that for the next.
I mean, just a quick look at the numbers. I mean, 2018 versus 2020, operating expenses were, 6.8 in 18, and our revenue was 9.5. And when you go to 19, our revenue went up $1.2 million, but our operating expenses went up $1.15 million. So, I mean, there's only like $50,000 difference there. But the difference between 19 and 20, our operating expenses went up just over $100,000, but our revenue went up just over $500,000. So, I like our operating expenses, not increasing by the value that they did between 18 and 19, going up 1.1. They just went up $100,000, and yet our revenue went up 5 times that amount. So I'm interested to see what 21, look like from an operating expense and obviously revenue. But I think we're starting to find ourselves in that place where, and then, and then as Bill is alluding to, I mean, there's a lot of new construction going on all over our
I
district.
mean, it's like, a lot of times,
Sure,
you draw in,
valuations are increasing
you draw in,
drastically.
your
Probably
hands are
the
drawing.
biggest they've been having 15 years.
I wish I could tell you,
Taxes.
you wanna pay cash for it? well,
That's why
then put
taxes
all
are
this
down
cash
a
out,
little bit because we got so much
And you're putting the burden on the guy
Tax
this or that versus 20 years.
values.
The way we set our credits is to pay over time.
Okay, all right,
And
you're
then the
doing,
Long Island Village,
yeah, I'm interested. What page are we on there?
I didn't give you that page, I didn't know for their.
You probably did, I probably forgot. I just get hit in the head.
It's not included. It's not included.
Publicly, I just wanted to tell you about that.
How would that look?
Thank you. So basically, in that page 2 or page 1, there is a section, says Long Island Village.
16 million.
So we have it in there as a contract revenue debt. So think of it like this. I'm dealing with a village as if it was one major customer,
Customer.
one condominium,
Yes,
and it happens to have 1,030 plus connections.
units.
So we are in a, not necessarily in a running stage, we're pretty determined that I think the best way to do it is selling is a contract revenue bond. For basically, I enter into a contract just with you, you're the condo owner, you're the HOA, and I'm gonna show you, here's what it costs me to finance your needs. These are capital needs, these are not operational needs. So I'll go finance the $60 million, probably with Water Gun Board. The Water Gun Board does not wanna deal with them directly. Because you're the one,
They ain't got the AA plus two,
they
right?
can come after you,
Yeah.
they're not gonna be able to comply with the demands of the state. So they're gonna wanna have you as the sponsor of the loan. So you sponsor the loan for them. We have, meaning we, in view, this is a major customer. So if you don't take care of the customer, then God knows how much effect you will have on that revenue stream too. So it's kind of like, we gotta help each other.
Yeah.
The question is, if I'm gonna help you, put my credit, not my credit, but my management, when we go about evaluating credits, it's important about your debt condition, it's important about your finances, it's important about management and the people that are bosses of management. So there are factors like that. So if I bring these guys in, then I have to tell management here, you better be on top of these guys. Well, putting that aside, my custom money on $60 million is gonna be X dollars, based on interest rate that I think the Water Government can lend us at about 3%. They cannot get that rate, 3% over 25. They can't get that rate, I don't think even over beyond 10 years. They go to a bank a bank or an HOA doesn't give you that kind of money for those kind of improvements, especially you gotta know how to run them. You know, run a water system, a sewer system, you gotta have people with some level of expertise. So you end up being the sponsor one way or the other. So what I would like for you to consider is that you borrow this money, but then if I'm gonna owe the water board $1 million, say, for that payment of the 16 million, I wanna have a coverage of 1.25. So if my payment is $1 million, I'm gonna say it's $1,250,000. And divide the $1,250,000 among 1,000 customers divided by 12, that's your bill. And right now we think that that will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 a month per connection. And then the issues that we're dealing with, well, I'll put it in, water is warm. No, I'm glad I'm able to speak a little bit to this because I definitely want to say that we've been in discussions with the Texas Water Development Board as well as the Texas Attorney General. As you know, any debt that's issued by the district has to be approved by the Texas Attorney General. So we have had preliminary discussions with them about the contract revenue bonds that we just spoke to you about. This does affect the revenues of the district, so we have to look at the covenants that are in your revenue resolutions. You can make certain promises to your previous bondholders about what you're going to do with the revenues. Luckily, under your bond revenue resolutions, there is a provision that you can issue special project bonds.
Okay.
So these contract revenue bonds, I'll be happy to answer any questions about that. But this is to say that this is a unique financing nevertheless. The Texas Attorney General, the Water Development Board, they're going to want to know about the district's ability to enforce assessments and the like. So that's a long way of saying that we've had preliminary discussion with DWDD. They've said this has a possibility. Let's keep talking. Let's look at what the agreement's going to look like between the district and OID should the district decide to move forward with further discussion. So we're in good shape right now, but there's still a legal road to go.
Yeah, and I would, and thank you for the update. I would encourage you both to continue to go down that road and hopefully get to a point where you can present something that makes sense for this water district.
Oh, no question.
That helps that community. Because in the end, that would be a win-win.
Yeah, I think.
But financially, it's got to make sense, and it doesn't got to put us in such a compromising, liable situation that, you know, we're leveraging future rates, you know, because you're already showing me that yellow track where we're getting in a compromising position just with your projected.
In their case, this bill, this assessment.
But they have to vote on it themselves too, correct?
That's on themselves.
Yeah.
Right, but they have to vote on it. They have to have an
Of
actual
course.
They don't have
county
a lot of
vote.
options. If they don't do something like this, where are they gonna go? I think that's the position that.
That's the position the board members in, but you're absolutely correct. Like, all we can do is present, like, look, we will do this under these conditions. This is what it needs to look like. It's probably going to come out to $100 a month for each one of your units. Take that to your board meeting and see what they say. But
And that's separate and apart from the water and sewer. Water and sewer bills is
it's going to keep churning, but they're.
This is an assessment separate and apart from the water and sewer.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what we're going to, one of the concerns we have is that if, let's say you 5 are part of the HOA and 2 of you don't want to pay, I don't want to be collecting from you.
Mhm. Yeah.
The HOA to collect. So we're building reserves. We, normally when you have a bond reserve, we build it over a year. Here, we're building 18 months. You got, if let's say out of the 1,500 is for whatever reason they don't want to pay, I got a bond reserve, but I'm going to go out there and seek legal representation from against you. Because when you do property tax supported debt, I can always come after your property. When you do revenue or assessments, it's a different ball.
Yeah.
And so we're going to come here first protecting you
Yes.
for your credit considerations and legal for that, and then.
Which essentially protects everyone that we serve. It's not, you know.
So in closing, at the next meeting, very likely you'll hear from us to come with a deal loan to be authorized to provide for funds to do the Laguna Boulevard project, I think. Something else, about $3 million. And there's a water and sewer loan too, for about $2 million, something like that.
Yes.
Or is it a two?
That's right. The 2 million for the lift station project and the geo would be the clarifier and the building project.
Thank you. And then we'll see what the refinancing is, and try to do the refinancing.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mendoza.
Thank you for your time, Millie.
Yes, sir, thank you.
It's always a pleasure seeing you.
See you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's see.
When I forgot to say, Bobby, me había, me acuerdo que me había dicho all the work.
All right, so I guess, the main effort of this workshop is talking about the big dollars, the kind of effort that's gonna involve that service. And so I don't know how much we want to get into the, we had back up in here on equipment, that we really do an annual request basis and a cash basis. So, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna lightly discuss that, it's pretty much if we look at our annual, bid reviews, it's under 4C. Well, like, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess let me go back over the revenue projects as a whole. So I guess I'm
Where we
just
at?
looking over at tab number 4, and then we got the first summary.
All my
here.
tabs have letters.
Yes, there's a number 4, and then the tab after that was 8.
Am I sure there is?
Yes. Got 4?
I did, Charles.
All right, okay, so with 4, the first one I have in here is the water infrastructure on our capital fund. And really the main ones here that are pretty big are ID is the project number. We look at 13, 14, and 15. Those are rehabs for our existing elevator storage tanks. One being any buoy, elevator tank, look at any do that rehab next fiscal year. And the fiscal year after that, we look at a major rehab for the side chain. And then the year after that, we'd be looking at doing a rehab at the Heights. So that's about, 1.5 million in tank work that's above and beyond, anything on the wastewater revenue notes and the tax funds. So we have to find a way to get that in the budget, or how we're going to cover the water infrastructure side on it.
How high a priority is that?
That one's that point to where, yeah, we need to be looking at
Yeah, you're giving me that feeling. No, he's shaking his head. So, yeah. And that's how I want to see this stuff. Like, I understand we want everything, but what do we absolutely need?
Right.
And then once we get done with what we absolutely agree that we need, what do we have left over to start tapping into maybe some preventive maintenance or projected needs?
Right.
That's how I like information presented. But that helps me with the decision, just seeing the room about those particular items.
Right, so the water tank we have, that's something that has to pretty much 15 years for projected.
Okay.
And then as we get into the raw water system, there was back in here about a hydraulic optimization study we did back in 2009. For the most part, that involved identifying the Quattro pump station needs and the pipeline upgrades from Los Presos to Luna Vista. So the critical needs of that got done in our 2011 system improvements. And so really the part that's in here is at the river pump station, we definitely needed at least one new pump. And then there was some instrumentation, maybe 30 grand. That was identified in the optimization study, but the critical need here is just simply getting a new pump, because our pumps are pretty worn.
At the river?
Yeah, they've lost efficiency, we've had work done on every single pump. And at this time, they're charging about $50,000 to repair these pumps. We do it a second time, it sums up to the cost of one pump.
Understood. Just one will do it? One more pump?
Take us a certain way, yes.
Yeah, and the 3-year plan will be at least one pump.
Okay.
And then this item 17, really, we have a low pressure line from the Rice Trap Reservoir 4 over to Los Presos. And so that 2009 optimization study proposed lining the entire 36-inch with a 30-inch, like a in-situ like a switch line, inserting a smaller diameter pipe to resolve all those the joints that have a tendency to fail, but we can't really.
How long is that line?
How long is it?
Ballpark.
Reservoir 4 Clemens?
Well, I'm not too sure, maybe
Let's see.
they've been on 25 hour line.
Yeah, our whole system's 25 miles, and Laguna Vista to Los Presos is 12, and then.
You're going to shove a smaller diameter line?
Yeah, we're talking like 6-7 miles. Something like that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but that one, is pretty far down the road. Really, the that needs to be done before we look at upgrading our reservoir forward pump station. But, I mean, we can meet our capacity with the condition that that pump station's in today, so that's why we don't see it as anything critical at this point.
The 13, 14, 15 are critical.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15. 12 is pretty much what we're wrapping up.
What we're doing, I mean, we're finishing that, yeah. that's-
Yeah, so that one's pretty much done already. 13, 14, 15 are the big ones. We need to make sure we're budgeting for it over the next 3 years. And then as well as the item 16 should be in the plan as well. That's all we've done already. And then let's see, so that's really the water infrastructure. The rest will go in the wastewater on the revenue side. Well, I take that back. Well, the next item is the water operations. These are the requests.
Yeah, like item 25,
Yeah,
26, those are your big tickets there.
yeah, those are basically, in general, we have a lot of AC water line. This one we're looking specifically between 510 Beach Boulevard, that's 400,000. Laguna Vista, in Palm and Orange, and Ebony, and Mesquite, that's 430,000 to replace that AC line. And then on North Shore as well is another one, and airport as well.
What are we essentially doing here?
It's replacing asbestos cement pipe with PVC. It's just aged pipe that has probably long history of use.
Yeah, we keep having, repeated repairs in those areas. So other than that, 30 plus years old, I think. About keep turning them out.
Good.
And then, of course, I have the Long Island Village, the water side is item 28 on here, for 6.1 million. And then the wastewater side, well, yes, so I guess this next page is summarizing the water project scope. And between the tax and the revenue, we're looking at the current fiscal year 3.3 million. Which is.
Where are you seeing that? I lost track.
Oh, on this, I'll be on the second page, we're starting with water operations.
Yes,
And
sir.
then we had 25, 26, 27,
Yes,
and then 28 is Long Island Village.
got it.
And then in bold, I have water projects total.
Yes.
So that's the total water side of our request for all the projects that we've described here today. So we're looking at $80 million on the water side. Which includes both tax and revenue.
Which is doable or not doable? It's not doable, right?
That would, the seawater would be in that 80 million, so you take.
Reduce that by 40,
Yeah.
which makes it to a potentially manageable number.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that.
This is a 3-year deal, right?
Yeah, we're talking, let's see, 40.
3 times 12, but this is more than just revenue, isn't it?
Yeah, the 40 million will be tax and revenue. And really, as far as the numbers that Noe had presented for financing, we have 3 million in water infrastructure that weren't in the numbers we presented. So that's something we have to do.
So if we're in the 40 and we stay at a 12 revenue, I mean, 3 years, that's 36 in revenue. This isn't the only thing that we be spending that revenue on, right?
Right.
What do we generate in taxes a year? Do you know that number?
We only generate enough just to cover our debt service.
Just,
So
that's
we
right.
have our debt services right now.
Sweet.
That's by law.
I thought it also covered board member food and snacks.
Relax.
No, so it's 1.3 million right now.
All right.
This is a municipal control district, this is not for profit. It only just covers expenses.
All right, no more questions.
All right, so if we flip to the next page on the summary, now we're beginning the wastewater side. And, I was thinking 2018B, I was looking at a draft on the 2019 is the correct number for this description. So we're looking at the series 2019 revenue bonds. And the first column for 2020, 2021, that's what's currently under design. And we have this fiscal year's cost estimate of 5.643 million, 520. But then with that request, really, there's I have this kind of spreadsheet on lift station side. For that column, we're negative 703,000. And then the next column, 2021, 2022, is an additional 1.286 million. That's where Noe was talking about the $2 million that we need but we also consider that 1.3 million low priority compared to the 7.
We're negative 700,000 this year.
Yeah, that would be, that's how this is showing.
I don't see that.
Yeah, there's a separate, when you flip over to the first 12x17 page, that's the description of our Series 2019 revenue projects. And so if you look at the project cost and the original estimate, our subtotal for the construction cost is $6,481,000. Our construction budget that we've allocated is $4.5 million. And so that's where we have a negative $1,993,811.
We get that for.
Oh, yeah, I have to go for it.
Now, thank you.
So really, we kind of have it broken as the base bid, which is really our higher priority needs. We're requesting $703,000, and to get 100% of the design work, proceed to construction, that request would be continuing, like the great comment, correct? Which is for 1.9 million. Well, yeah, 1,989,300,000. That would be how much we're negative for what's 100% designed today and ready to proceed for bid.
Dare I ask where would we come up with the 1.989 311?
So the options are either revenue debt, or, spending.
I'm not in favor of spending the fund balance.
Me either. He just said if we spend that, we'll be in the red.
Or be able to
Or-
borrow.
Yeah.
The other
even
option
sooner.
is cutting some of the projects, deferring some of these lift stations that
Back to square one.
critical to future. They are already engineered and ready for the construction, but if we want to try to save,
Okay, don't go down
in
that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Tell me again, if we don't take it from the fund balance, then what are we doing?
We're issuing
Revenue bonds.
revenue bonds.
Which looks like what for our clients?
Just
We would budget.
We go back to Mr. Hinojosa and ask him to go to the market and
Get us $2
Yes.
million.
But then you also have to raise your rates you'll have to probably.
There's a
raise your
domino
rates
effect there that
to
raises
adjust the
rates.
revenue bond to borrow the money.
in order, is that based on that coverage rate thing
More
that you
than
were talking
likely,
about?
correct. More than likely, that's what you're gonna have.
Yeah, if you look on page 12 of his.
What's our coverage right now? We're at 2 something, weren't we?
0.29.
So we wouldn't have to immediately do that, but we'd be going down the road where we'd eventually do that. What page is that?
Of the proposals that you said, that
You're gonna have to just
It's
have
on
people.
this.
First of all, you're raising the property tax. Now you're gonna raise revenue.
So right now we're at
to help pay
2.29.
for an additional
page
$2
12.
million debt service on that one.
He proposed
That they figured, hey, we thought our bond was covering this, why I gotta pay for even more.
So that,
You've already paid for.
So does this take into account us borrowing $2 million?
yes,
So you're throwing
that
that money
blue
away.
title at
Don't
the top,
move forward.
2021 revenue
Tough
bonds for
situation,
2 million,
yes.
that's what this is.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
On page 12,
I'm
the
on there.
title at the top, it says 2021 revenue bonds,
Yes,
project fund 2 million, that's
Yes.
this.
that's this. Okay, so Adam, for those that don't know, on page 12, he's broken down, anticipating us borrowing $2 million. It would look like this. And so we're still withholding, we're staying above that threshold of 1.25.
Correct.
So
You're saying
this
Mr.
put-
Hinojosa already anticipated us.
Yeah, borrowing $2 million
That's
to
correct.
do what they're going to recommend. And so in this analysis, we're not raising rates.
No, I mean, the rate,
We're getting close to it
Yes.
potentially in year
yes. And
2024 based on this data
Correct.
and the
Does this
unpredictable
take into
future.
account our rate raising that will occur over the next 2 to 3
Yeah.
years?
No,
No?
it does not. It's only looking
Yeah,
at
he-
revenue that
Yeah,
came in
he
last
killed
year.
it for where it's at right
So
now.
it should be
No
better.
growth.
It should improve, correct. This coverage ratio.
Yeah, he's a pessimistic fortune teller. Nothing changes this is where you'll be, which I like. So it allows for us to grow and improve and these numbers to be better than what he's presenting. It's like my old man. All right. Okay, that makes me feel a little better then. Thank you. I feel like I'm the only one asking questions tonight. Because you've been here and done that so damn long.
I see this all day long.
You've seen it all.
It seems like it will be hard to get a Chevy Traverse to make the bank runs this year.
I was waiting for one of those comments.
That is not in the.
Might not be the year for that ask.
We are getting budget software to help.
We talked about that, that's right.
$20,000 a year.
That's
Hey,
right.
aside though, because there's no agenda, like we can just talk about whatever we want.
Correct.
So the last board meeting, we unfortunately kind of shut down your ask about software. That's what reminded me.
It'll be on the agenda again. You guys tabled it, so it will automatically bring it on the next.
Did they kill the $19,000
I
discount?
asked them, and they said that they would extend it until we make a decision.
Perfect. And you got the answers to those couple questions, like how long are we married to them?
Yes.
We
and
can
I-
cancel in 30 days or whatever.
And I asked the representative to make a presentation so that.
So we can barrage them with questions and then sign a deal. I love it. That's well done right there. Perfect. Sorry to put you in that position last time, but that's why they pay me the big bucks, you know, 99-cent munchies.
So as far as for, because, you know, we're looking at preparing the board item for action on March 10th. So we're comfortable with looking at this first $1.96 million revenue.
I'm comfortable with it too.
Legislative budget.
It's what we need, right? It's what we want. All the powers that be that make decisions in this.
What we need, not what we want, what we need.
It's what we need. Got it. All right.
All right, and I guess other items, since we got a lot going on, are you interested in considering a letter for Seawater master plan with that?
Not for $150,000. I'm not. I mean, knowing what that rabbit hole looks like is going to be in the $40 million range. I mean,
Just so you're aware, our reservoir is below 50% right now.
Without a drought.
Yes, and that's before we go into the hot weather. Just so you know.
I mean, with a reservoir level today under like 45, 46%, I mean, we should already be implementing stage 2 triggers, which is limited watering days for the various towns.
The reality is, if I may say this,
Yeah,
the desalination is realistic, because you're out of water, you're in the road of the river, and with growth continuing, you're already 40%, 45%. I mean, the reality is you're not gonna have water out of the Rio Grande, and you need to have Plan B, and it's long-term planning.
So our two
In reality.
alternative sources, right, we have two alternative plans of water, either for water reclamation facility or the desalination.
explain the water reclamation facility. Briefly, Cliff Notes. I don't need a damn movie.
It's the
Just
sewer
the
effluent.
tap.
Right now, that sewer effluent's going right out to the bay. We're gonna add treatment to send it back to our reservoir.
Understood.
And so that's a $4 million job.
It's the Vegas way without saying what he just
Yeah, it's
said in my ear.
it's exactly like me
It's
coming
the
back.
tap.
I mean, except we're trying to amend that budget to send it to the PI.
Almost makes me want to spend $40 million.
I mean,
Okay.
Because we do have that reclamation study that's going in place for 2015. It's eligible for a field reclamation grant, but for a Title 16 grant, the minimum project cost is 20 million. And we've already got the sewer side of it at more or less 11 million. So the remaining portion is about 4.
Dumb question by the jock in the room. Is there any way, like, I want to say what you just said so bad. What was it? What's the politically correct way of saying that?
The water reclamation.
So water reclamation facility, is there any way tying that into our irrigation meters that we have several thousand of? So it's not going to my tap where I drink it, but it could go on my yard?
Well, no, because then you'd have to build a separate
Whole separate set of
and the
lines.
pipelines would be far more
Which wouldn't be cheaper than the $40 million desalination project?
We're talking about, do you know how much runoff?
You'd have to have a whole total.
A lot.
It's about 700,000 gallons a day.
What was that, man?
It has to go throughout the whole system, so you're talking about putting a whole new infrastructure.
Whole new infrastructure.
It'd be
All right.
comparable to the 1 inch deep we'd be gaining for the seawater demonstration that was proposed most of the conventions. But we'd be doing it at 1 ton per house, and we have a waste product that we so there's a lot of elements in place to get that to finish.
Another dumb question. Um, Anybody remember how much desal plants were going for back in 2011, like May of 2011? They weren't going for 15 million, I can tell you that, but what were they going for?
That's what it was.
It was
for,
15 million to build that out.
1 million gallon a day
Yeah.
at that time. 15.
So it's only one MGD
Yeah,
One MGD
for
would-
15 million?
like if we would dive into a master plan level study, I don't anticipate seeing a $40 million job. I think we could get something and stay reasonably within the population to
But one MGD doesn't help us, like
Right.
four, I mean, if the blackout week showed us anything, it's 4 MGDs doesn't really help us,
Well,
you
the
know?
water plant one.
It would take some stress off the river, obviously,
It
so.
would give you an option B when
Give you
you
an
run out
option.
of water.
Really what happens with our plant right now, tax bond, get water plant one up to speed, get the membrane facility, what you
Yeah,
still
we'll be able
need
to
is
pull
water
more
rights.
off the river.
Well, exactly, and so the market value of water rights, it's actually described in that state water plan. If you want to jump back to the 3A.
Where I was going with that question is just like the accounting for, inflammation that's occurred, inflammation's not even the correct word. Like if it was 15 million in 2011 and now it's, we're thinking it's 40 million inflation, thank you, Dave. You know, that's a,
2.5 times.
thank you. And so if we continue to wait,
It's a slightly bigger plant.
Well, I mean, there could be efficiencies in technology that drives the cost down.
down, right?
Yeah, they could find ways to get it done.
They could come out with an iPhone that makes water. You
Yeah.
just never know. Like that's the next.
I mean, really, the realistic issue for us is we need more water rights because we're just still using surface water.
You're already at capacity now in just
Right.
July, the month of July, you're at capacity.
Yeah. Last year we used 5,800 acre feet and fully prorated, which we expect getting this year. Our authorization is 5,700. So we're already short 100 acre feet today. And there is some opportunities like for us to look at. We need to go to the market and see what we can find to purchase additional water rights. And that could be a discussion for us.
Yeah, and that's not in
Delivery
our
of water.
plan,
Yeah.
additional water.
In reality.
If we want to go that route, that's probably the cheapest.
Why are we so low right now?
Just the reservoir levels.
Is your water in your yard?
Like our people use a lot more water,
Oh, what's low now? It's
Yeah. especially after we couldn't even pump water for a couple
combination
days.
of Lake Amistad and Falcon Lake.
Mhm.
That's the level combined is at 45% right now.
So we haven't been able to pump as much water
No,
in.
That's not the problem. We don't have a problem with that.
You know,
The problem is that
Haven't had rain.
the lower the Amistad and Falcon Lakes go, the more water that they take from the.
Yeah, and we're at the end of the train.
Yeah, well, yeah, the problem is how the law was written, you know, I mean, pretty much allocations off the river like bank accounts and it's oversold. And so, you know, 1967, pretty much the way our water rights were established is we get prorated like an agriculture site would. And so under that condition, we're using more water today than what the rule that's written is established. And so that's really, you know, what we need to take care of.
Because there's still water flowing into the ocean right now that we could use.
Yeah.
But it's limited based on what it is up there, right?
Like we have to buy it.
Pissed at that.
But like our market value with the state water plan said, once we build a 5 MGD facility, going from 2.9 to 5 MGD at water plant 1, to really support that, we need 2,300 acre feet at a cost of $7 million. And that would be our just a one-time purchase to get the right to divert that off the river.
$7 million it cost me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't think of that water.
Hours
a day.
Probably one of the last questions, but I doubt it. Who's using desal technology right now? That's neighbors, us or close to us or a water district that we know?
There are
Well,
none.
the trustees are working on it now. Actually.
There's none in Texas right now?
California has.
Catalina Island.
I don't want to do anything like California.
The island of Grand Cayman.
I want to do it. I don't want to do it now if you say California's doing it. Anybody outside of California doing it?
Yeah, Florida, Tampa.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
There's some.
Otherwise, it's desalination from the brackish water, groundwater, brackish water. that can-
PUB has that. PUB has
They
that.
do that?
Salty than,
That's interesting.
seawater.
It's a big plant.
Yeah, that's those micro desal plants they talk about, right?
Yes.
The ones
Southwest
they're bringing
Regional
it up from the
Water.
bottom of that reservoir
Southwest
station.
Regional Water. Authority.
Yeah, well, I mean.
They
it
drill
goes,
and,
you know,
But anyhow, right now, we're 45% at both combined levels on the Falcon Lake and Onset. I want to bring a report on the next meeting on Wednesday, to give you all an update on that type of situation, where it hasn't rained in the main drawdown where the water goes straight to the lakes. It hasn't rained there, raining on this side, so all the water goes out to the Gulf. What happens on that one is that we get calls. I guess nobody gets a call from the Texas Commission, Environmental Authority. They say, go ahead and pump some water from 9 a.m. today until tomorrow, because that water's going out. So they want somebody to pick it up, and they don't charge it against our water rights. So that's,
So we do capture extra water.
Yeah, we've done that. Well, we just started the year in January with the new water rights. But we're already 45%. That means that we need to start let the public know conservation measures are going to be in effect. So we'll let you know at the next meeting.
Do we have to make the $150,000 decision tonight, or
Yeah.
can't take any action?
No, this is only a
Well,
workshop.
it sounds like, say the letter of intent, we're just going to place it on the agenda for the 10th.
But that doesn't marry us to 150 grand, right?
No,
So then
it's not a.
there's no harm for doing a letter of intent. Would we agree on that?
You may find some grant money, you may find some other stuff coming along the way.
Throw it out there.
Doesn't hurt to ask, or at least start the asking process.
So then we're good with the letter of intent first. And then we'll talk about, I need to talk to a potential buyer on water rights.
Yeah, we have a customer in mind
So,
that we're finding out
Yeah,
what the options are with that.
yeah, I see a potential, what is it, somebody to approach for negotiations that could give us another 250. So that's, I need to.
Yes.
That'll help bridge the gap that exists right now.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I guess we can talk about it next one. We do have about 1,000 acre feet from one of the fish and wildlife.
All right.
It's available.
Yes.
What's next?
Okay.
All right, let's see.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlon.
Are we back on the spreadsheet summary and form? Or did we? Okay, we got into wastewater. We know we're good with a $2 million note.
Yes.
And then we get into treatment plants. There's East Blanc is in pretty bad shape. That's a $6 million request. And between that and the future lift stations, which are the bottom of the page, that's the next note that Nelly brought to your attention about the $10 million range. It would be for East Blanc sewer plant we have, and then the remaining, getting the remaining lift stations that haven't proceeded with engineering or design. It would be on project number 51 to 64.
And this would represent page 13 of Noah's report, where we find ourselves in the red after we take this next loan to.
Well, that's only the second one. The other report? Let's see. So the 10,000,006. So on page 12.
Okay.
Page 12, the 10,650,000.
Yes.
Apartment 1130. That's the next one we're talking about.
Understood. Okay.
Where are we in our agenda page?
D, 4D,
4D.
like the grades you got in Notre Dame.
Isn't that an A at Marshall?
Yes, it very much is.
Yes.
Touche.
Okay, here we go. So this is a good summary. So 4D, are we all on that page for the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, sir.
Summary? All right, so if you look at the columns 2021 and 2022, that does not have the construction of ancillary headworks, but it has the design and construction of Desalination. And then I have lift stations under 4E. So if you look at the summary for 4E, that's the set of lift stations that are the next group after the current 2019 revenue notes finalized. And so between those two, that should be coming up with the 10 million that knowing that.
You come in, you're right here with Louis' projections, page 12.
Yeah.
Page 12 tells you.
Yeah, and then that third column where we get those going to the red for 4 years, that's everything in this future column on 4E. Yeah, 4D, back on that, still on that page. And so see everything in the future column, that's the headworks. and-
That's what puts us in the red.
Yes, the headworks standing buoy, the sludge holding tanks at Fort Isabel Sewer Plant, and advanced water treatment, the water reclamation facility, and grit removal at the Middle East. All that's what has the last 9.2 million.
And again, I'm assuming, hoping that this is all in order of priority,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to have an opinion, should we use the bucket bridge or something else?
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right,
Yeah, so that would really, and then the 9.2 million, I think it's negative territory to be able to.
We don't wanna get there.
So I mean, that would be the, as far as the.
so we can borrow 2 million this year, 10.65 in 2023. Is that basically what we're looking at? And we'll still be okay, as explained on page 12 of his report?
That's correct.
Perfect, okay, and then we can get all these things that we need, not necessarily what we want.
It's restoring this Blanca with headworks, grit removal, that's been a long time wish list. Improve the process control and new generator. And then, get our lift stations in condition, energy side for additional.
I like that, okay. All right,
Can I ask our esteemed chairman, who has been doing this a long time, his thoughts on all this? What's your thoughts when you hear all this?
As far as, it's pretty.
Spending all the money, you add stuff this is all stuff you support, we're ready to go ahead. You
Yes.
think the plan makes sense
Yes,
as outlined, all that?
we are under budget though. I mean, we're, if we don't, we're gonna be even more under budget if we're not moving fast enough on this.
Okay.
Because costs are rising considerably.
Yep, I just, appreciate your insight.
you don't
Been-
see any
been here
red
a long time.
flags, though, yeah, your opinion does matter.
This has all been in pipeline and working for a number of years.
For, a long time. I just want to make sure that you're the
You're the guy that's been here.
Yes.
Continuity. I want to make sure like, hey, us
All
boys
this
haven't
is, none of
screwed up.
this is new. The only part
Right.
that's new is the budget shortfall.
But again, we will come to the board when something like this is gonna, need to get approved. We'll come to the board.
And
Not everything's gonna be approved at one time.
there could be future shortages also.
We'll make sure
That's
that
not
there's
the
funding
real,
available.
no, that's just the number right now. There's possibly more shortage.
More shortages.
Hopefully
I
not,
also
but
want to
possibly.
mention that the majority of this was proposed in the 2017 bond tax bond that failed.
Right.
And so the board's thinking after that tax bond failed was that we were going to need those improvements because there were source system improvements. That we were going to need them, but we were going to need to raise rates in order to make that happen.
Because there will be revenue.
That was the whole genesis of the 5-year rate plan, was to generate enough revenue so that we would have the ability to fund these.
I would throw out there that in the last 2 years, once rates increased, another thing I heard right at the start, I'll back up, is employees maybe aren't getting taken care of in some key ways. CPI wasn't getting adjusted every year. There was some health insurance issues, the tables of payments and yearly raises weren't on par with other places. So that was a priority for the board, and we passed a lot of spending in that regard. And I hope that, we've improved the lives of the people who are working hard to get us water every day. That's always something I think we have to do and we should do, and maybe already should have been done. And I know the board had probably wanted to do. So now that we have hopefully accomplished some of that, now we got to get really focused on the infrastructure side, I think. In terms of where's our revenue going? We've gone here, we got to go here now with it.
We had the cart in front of the staff and now you have the staff pulling the cart.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, hey, hopefully you guys have felt that and felt our support, and now, we're all gonna come.
I believe
Yeah.
they have,
I mean, I wish there was way more money, we could, pay even more, and I hope as time goes on, we figure out ways to be able to do that. I think one way to do that is give our customers great water. And then they support, hey, I gotta support this rate increase because I want good water, and I gotta pay people to get me that good water. I tell people that every time. It doesn't come, it's not magic. And the fact that we had everything shut down and we got our water turned around, you know, in hours or days, you know, by guys working late. I think that really shows that we're doing the right thing.
Not that it was a good thing, but a lot of times people take this water for granted.
Yeah,
Oh, you got that?
absolutely.
So maybe they didn't take it for granted that
There
little
were-
period of time we had.
There
so
were
much
people all
water.
over the state who had no water for a long time, right?
Still don't.
Yeah, still don't have water. So, I mean,
I took a bath in the Gulf.
yeah,
We do emphasize
we
that.
still have it staked out,
The guys
caution
that did
zone.
all the hard work and, you know, we did a great job.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
ladies and
And,
gentlemen.
like you mentioned, you're correct, we're trying to improve the pay and we've done quite a bit of it already. So, hoping that you guys are very happy with what's happened already.
I know everybody is. There's no doubt about that. So, and now I think everybody sees, hey, yeah, we gotta, if we want work to do, we gotta get, you know, spend the money on the work we gotta do now. So it's good.
All right, what's next? I see Freeze and Nichols
Yeah.
lingering in the back. I'm sure they didn't fly down just for observation. No way. Wow. I thought we were looking for a budget check.
was that you were gonna sponsor the staff dinner? I don't remember when the
Christmas party, I thought it was.
I'm pretty sure that was gonna happen.
What's the next holiday?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think,
Last part of it,
I think the last part of it, the Noe and Hosta pretty much covered the revenue part of it. We touched on the fund balance discussion, but we're welcome to get into that a little bit more if you'd like. If you look at tab G, and you look at what's in your packet, we have flip to this page that shows your fund balance over the past 10 years. You can see how it's in 2010, 87.3 million, and 10 years later, you can see that it just slowly has grown. And I want to remind you that this number, this fund balance, the fund balance is growing from 4.5 to 8.3. But this number has grown. It's taken since the inception of the district, basically, to come up with this number. So if we want to adopt some sort of formal policy, that's what our auditors would recommend. A lot of local governments adopt a fund balance policy where they decide that this is what it's prudent to have in case of emergency, and they'll determine what that is. If it's 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, you know, whatever it is.
So our fund balance, sorry to interrupt, is 8.3?
Correct.
Good. Why was I thinking it was 10? Because we've got 10.6 in there, but really only 8.3 is the fund balance? Or what?
I've heard you guys mention use the emergency fund and add it to this figure. Maybe that's maybe.
That is what it is. That's why you think 10, because there's an emergency balance of what in our emergency fund?
2 million.
So the 8 and the 2, where we get that.
But 2.1 and 8.3 still doesn't come out to 10.6. So
10.
but I got what you're saying.
And then at the end, I include the memo, which is a summary of what I told you orally the last time we had the quarterly investment report. You were asking about where the total money that you see on that report, where it comes from, how is it used, why, what kind of restrictions are there. So I just put that into a written format. I went account by account, explaining where this money comes from, how it's used, what the balance was, and I used the figures as of the last quarterly investment report, which was December 31st. And I just went into detail. Very good. If you expect me to read it,
No, we don't.
It's all there for you.
I mentioned all the information that you guys received today. If you all have questions, come on by and we can have you one-on-one. We can do whatever you understand you.
They used to tell us don't come by, now they're telling us to come over.
However, if you guys.
No, we know that.
You guys
Thank
take
you.
the water in here back to the reservoir, please. Pour it in.
Oh, and just so you know, when I mentioned the water is at the reservoir, we're not talking about our local reservoirs, we're talking about the reservoirs.
We're talking
Those are the ones that are the ones up there.
Questions, comments?
Adam wanted to know if he can.
Anything in closing?
No, only one on there.
Anything in closing? Appreciate everyone for being here, staff, board, Priest and Nichols, knowing all of them have left. A lot of things getting accomplished, all coming together.
Yeah, thanks everybody for sitting around after a long day.
7:17.